Holy smoke. The Velvet Underground. Where even to begin? I heard Lou Reed before I heard the Velvet Underground. Walk on the Wild Side was kind of a radio hit after all. As a kid, before I knew anything about anything, I remember liking that song, just the sound of it. Had no idea what it was about though. Was just a kid after all. Since then, my opinion of Walk on the Wild Side kind of shifted. It started when I noticed how awkward a lot of the phrasing was. Little Joe never once gave it away. Everybody had to pay and pay. A hustle here and a hustle there. New York City is the place where. And today, I don't think much of the song overall, even though the sounds are pretty cool. But I have to give it props, because I do find it remarkable that a song about transgendered sex workers could become a radio hit in 1974, even. But that's Lou Reed. It would be many years later until I heard the Velvet Underground. I'm pretty sure I first heard of the Velvet Underground in Rolling Stone's 1987 list of the best 100 albums of the past 20 years. So that was a point in their favor. They're respected and important. Worth looking into. Then I remember talking to my dad about the first time the Allman Brothers played at the Fillmore East in early 1970. They opened for the Velvet Underground. And I think it's safe to say that not only did the Velvet Underground's fans not have a lot of patience for anything originating in Georgia, but from what I heard, the band themselves were not exactly easy to work with either. So let's call that a negative. Cliquish fans and self-involved egotistic band members. Then I became a fan of Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And in the song Concentration Moon from the album We're Only in It for the Money, engineer Gary Kellergren mentions the Velvet Underground in his spooky whisperings.
That and the day after that. Also, in the same time, I get to work with the Velvet Underground, which is as shitty a group as Frank Zappa's group.
For you younger Zappa fans, this might be a surprise to you. For whatever reason, I mean, I can guess, but the Velvet Underground reference was removed from Concentration Moon in the mid-90s, and it's been absent in every release since. In any event, a connection to the Mothers and a mention on their album, that's a point in the Velvet Underground's favor in my eyes. But then there was Frank Zappa's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was inducted the same year as the Allman Brothers, so I was there to see the ceremony. Lou Reed gave the speech for Zappa's induction, and it sure sounded to me like the vast majority of Lou Reed's speech was about Lou Reed and not Frank Zappa. Point against. And then there's all the bands that I've encountered since that have cited the Velvet Underground as a primary influence. Talking Heads? Cool. Sex Pistols? Not for me. Can? Excellent. The Smiths? Sorry, not so much. So even before I heard a single note of the Velvet Underground, I had this gigantic mountain of associations and expectations. Finally, out of curiosity, I got up the nerve to spin the Banana album, Velvet Underground and Nico. Venus in Furs was okay. The rest evaporated from my mind entirely. So I guess I have to go to their second album, White Light, White Heat. Can you tell I'm stalling? Look, the fact that I put this album last in my list says a lot about my state going into this week. I'm more than a bit scared of alienating some folks. Okay, last chance. Honestly, I have no idea where this music might take me, but if you sense that I might tick you off with what I'm about to say, climb out now.
Pats the head of another.
It might not be possible to discover the Velvet Underground in 2021. Here's what I mean. The first couple of times hearing this album, all I'm thinking is, oh, that sounds like Modern Lovers. Oh, that sounds like Egabam Yassi. Oh, that sounds like Patti Smith, etc., etc. But of course, all those came years later. I keep having to remind myself that this album came out in 1968. Same year as the White Album and Electric Ladyland. Same year Freddie and the Dreamers broke up. I'm also noticing that Lou Reed is a better guitarist than I thought he was. His solo on I Heard Her Call My Name is wild. In all honesty, it reminds me a lot of Colonel Bruce. I mean, I know that the Aquarium Rescue Unit has been called the Velvet Underground of the jam band scene, but I guess I didn't expect to be making a direct musical connection here. The Gift. That's an interesting track. Honestly, it's the one track that kind of dates this album for me. The prose and the little short story, the names, the details, all very 1960s. But mostly, initially, what I'm getting from this album is, well, it's kind of hard to describe, but it activates the same part of my brain that I engage with when I spend time composing with my modular synth. I got into Eurorack modular synthesizers about 5 years ago, and in that time, I've amassed a decent collection of modules. I enjoy making music with the modular. It's meditative. It takes me hours to put together a patch I feel is satisfactorily musical. Hours of listening to the same loop of music over and over as I tweak the parameters, add parts, introduce modulation, shape sounds, and all of it while the same 2 or 4 bar loop of music will be repeating and evolving. I have recorded a few pieces that I've created this way, but I rarely release any of them, even just to post them on SoundCloud. My fear is that, as meditative as it is for me to create this music, if you weren't in my head as I was building it, it's likely to be very boring to listen to. That's my suspicion. What I'm hearing on these first few spins of White Light, White Heat is similar. The most positive thing I can say about what I hear so far is that it has that same meditative quality I sometimes find when I'm building a modular patch. But with that comes the same negative. There's only so many times you can hear the same 2 or 4 bars of music before it starts to become a bit boring. Oh, and there's the big 17-minute finale of Sister Ray. But I definitely need to listen to that one some more because after the first couple of listens, there's really only one thing that keeps sticking out for me.
Curly-haired boy.
After about the 5th or 6th time through Sister Ray, my free associative pathways started forming a relationship of some kind. I was hearing a resemblance, but I couldn't tell to what yet. But like I mentioned before, this happened a bunch as I went through this album the first few times. But pretty much every time an association would form, once the connection was made, what came back was some band that had drawn its influence directly from the Velvet Underground. Not this time, though. It was the Freak Out Jam section of Sister Ray that did it. Once I finally made the connection, I was surprised to note that the thing that I eventually landed on was something that had been made the year before, 1967. Specifically, the Freak Out Jam sections in Interstellar Overdrive and Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk from Pink Floyd's The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And the more I spun it, the more similarities I heard. I can't play you the whole things, but I can check some snippets out. But anyway, check this out. Velvet Underground. Pink Floyd. And that got me to thinking about the fan base of each. I mean, the Venn diagram of self-professed Velvet Underground fans and self-professed Pink Floyd fans. What's the overlap, do you think? I asked Emily to describe what came to her mind when she pictured a Velvet Underground fan. The words she used were like Berlin, sunglasses, pale skin, heroin. And for Pink Floyd, college kids and prog fans. I guess the lesson I've learned is when your primary drug influence is heroin and not LSD, your music is taken more seriously. Is that right? No, that's not completely fair. I mean, there might be some truth to it, but the truth of the matter is that the Velvet Underground covers aspects of sex work, drug culture, and LGBTQ issues that would take the rest of society a long ass time to catch up to. And full respect for that. I just wish Lou Reed wasn't one of these anything over 2 chords isn't rock type absolutists. That stuff makes me nuts. Just puts me off. No, I can state it even plainer than that. I wish I liked the music more.
Just another toy. Sick with silence, she